that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Thursday, March 12th.
All day.
All day?
Yeah.
That's when we're recording, not when you're watching. Guaranteed you're not watching Thursday, March 12th. I think this will start on the 13th. Nevertheless, it is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. I am George Harvey, and this is Tom Fennell.
And I raised the right hand this time.
How do you like that? Yeah, we have trouble trying to figure out which is which. When we're looking at a monitor, you know, I put my hand up, my right hand like this, and it looks to me like I'm looking in a mirror and seeing my left hand go up. So it's all very strange.
It shows how we've been conditioned.
We've been conditioned by looking in mirrors. Anyway, every day I get as much news as I can, 10 or 15 links to news articles that I put up on a website, geoharvey.wordpress.com. And I get together a bunch of these, and Tom and I come in and talk about them during the course of the week. And so we'll start on Thursday, March 5th. A recent widely seen documentary on air pollution in China called Under the Dome appears to have had a strangely pronounced effect on the Chinese government. Rather than stifle those involved or brush the matter aside, some higher-ups have even praised the documentary. Does it indicate a sea change? This is from Clean Technica.
Yeah, that's a screenshot from the film. Didn't
Yeah,
come out too well.
didn't come out too well. Okay.
But it's an interesting development because the people, the important people, are standing up and starting to take notice.
That's right.
And things are going to change in China.
Actually, things have changed since this article was posted. It had been viewed, I think, 200 million times, which is a lot of viewings for an.
Not in China.
Well, even in China, you know, it's a documentary that was 2 hours long almost, and they took it down.
They did take it
They
down.
took it down, and one of the people who had supported it, and possibly still does support it, was asked by news media why it had been taken down, and he said, "Well, it's not a good idea to allow something to be seen too many times."
Interesting backstory here that was in this article.
Yeah.
The woman who produced the film,
Yep.
the documentary, is a noted television news personality.
Yes.
The Dan Rather of China, if you will.
Yeah.
And she was very nonchalant about climate change until her child got sick from something that was associated, very sick, from something that was associated with
Air pollution. Yeah.
So she got into high gear. Now the takeaway here is this is a quote from the article. Interesting. That does seem to be the way that people generally are. Until something starts affecting them a great deal on a personal level, how much are they really going to care?
Yes.
You can easily make the argument that that's part of the issue with public perception of climate change. It sounds like something that will affect someone else in some other future time and place.
Yep.
And that just isn't a compelling narrative for most people.
People in Vermont think of climate change as something that's happening by the sea. People in Florida.
People in Texas don't believe it's happening at
Yeah,
all.
people in Florida. You know, one of the things that we saw in the last week was that there was some movement in Florida apparently, and I think this is one of the articles that we're going to be referencing about the government of Florida saying, don't talk about climate change, global warming, or sustainability. These are three terms you're not allowed to talk about.
I think it was more than just the government of Florida. I think
Wow.
it was some of the major media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well. Talk
about slanting the news.
Yeah, slanting the news. So do we have more on that, or should we go on?
No, we're through with that one.
Okay. Thelocal.es, and the .es I think means that it's a Spanish source.
Yes.
Gave us España, yeah. Gave us, I learned to speak a certain amount of Spanish, but I wouldn't repeat any of it on the air.
I bet I know.
I used to work with a bunch of Puerto Ricans in a chemical factory, and they were the best workers I've ever worked with. Yeah, just amazing. but their Spanish left something to be desired. One thing they said was, they would say, he's as rich as Rockefeller. This particular crew all came from the same village. They didn't trill their R's, they turned them into a guttural sound. And another thing that they did was point with their lips.
What?
They would point with their lips. They'd go like that. But they were a great crew. Okay. Moving on. The EU took a step to reduce its energy dependence, especially on Russia, by improving transmission connections between Spain and Portugal and the rest of Europe. The leaders of Spain, Portugal, and France pushed moving spare renewable energy produced south of the Pyrenees to the rest of Europe. That is, again, was from the local ES. And Spain and Portugal have got a lot of wind power. A lot of wind power.
They do.
And
they get solar too.
They have solar too, and they're
you don't
just
hear much about them, but this article says they're producing a surplus of power.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
most of the time. Yeah. So they want to get rid of that power. When you have a surplus of power, you have to get rid of it somehow, or you have.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's better than burning out your transformers. Okay. Next, Huffington Post told us this. The U.S. Senate tried but failed to override President Barack Obama's veto of legislation authorizing the Keystone XL pipeline on Wednesday. The measure drew 62 yes votes, with 9 Democrats joining the Republicans in voting to override the veto. The Senate consideration is ongoing and the issue is not over. And of course, what's happening here...
Keep bringing this up.
Oh, well, you know, the vote that was... before the Senate was not a vote to authorize Keystone XL. It was to bring it to the floor of the Congress without without discussion. Essentially, they want they want to fast track it. It has to go through the State Department because it goes across the U.S. border, and the State Department has not been working very fast on it.
And so far, Obama has been against it.
Well, he didn't say he was against it until he vetoed it. But I don't know that he even said it's against it now. You know, it's.
I'm not sure he has either.
But the.
Keeping his cards close to his chest on this.
Yes, I think so.
But
he has not been advancing the issue. So the Senate Republicans have been very unhappy with him on this.
There's a couple of the Senate Republicans.
There we go.
The guy on the left is John Hoeven from North Dakota.
Okay.
And on the right is Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Yep.
Okay, you've all heard of him.
Who is, yeah, well. Okay, next. Echo RI News, I believe that's Echo Rhode Island News, says, to the dismay of many climate activists, a major natural gas pipeline expansion project that will impact southern New England, New York, and New Jersey has been approved. The proposal has drawn grassroots opposition along the pipeline's 1,127-mile path between New Jersey and Beverly, Massachusetts. That seems like a very long path.
It is a long path. So there it is up on the map.
Okay.
Basically, this is not the same pipeline we've talked about before. This one's going through Connecticut.
Yeah.
There's another one that is that they're talking about in about the same status
right
now. That's going through Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Right.
And in both cases, the underlying message is, you know, are they really looking to bring gas into the country with this pipeline, or are they looking to export it?
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense to me that, you know, we're selling our gas when we need it.
It doesn't make sense, but you know, that's what business does.
But they'll get more.
They will sell it where it's best for them,
Absolutely.
Regardless of what the country needs. And that was, you know.
Yeah, the bottom line here, I've got it highlighted. None have addressed the issue that an undetermined amount of natural gas running through this expanded pipeline may be headed overseas.
Yes.
And so,
where the reason why the electric rates in Massachusetts went up 37% was because there was not enough natural gas.
yeah.
It could still go overseas.
Yeah.
You know.
Ain't capitalism great?
Yeah. Well, you know, we go back to the business of German submarines patrolling off the coast, spotting ships against the lights of cities, and the city leaders in Atlantic City, New Jersey, saying, no, we don't want to shut our lights off. That'd be bad for business.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, thousands of sailors are being sunk right outside the city. Okay, moving on to Friday, March 6th, the Dallas Morning News told us that in Texas, where consumers can buy electricity through competitive power plants, renewable energy plans are among the cheapest available. In a review of state-run website, powertochoose.org, 3 of 10 of the lowest priced plans offered in Dallas this week were advertised as 100% renewable.
Now this is interesting.
Isn't it?
The way this is just falling into place. It's not being forced into place.
Yes. Yep.
And it also makes a certain amount of sense because you don't have to pay for the energy. The energy is free.
The fuel.
So you got to pay for the utilization of that
Right,
energy.
right.
And fuel is going up in price. Maybe we're in a temporary dip, but everybody agrees fuel will
Be going up.
And as we have observed, renewables are coming down because the technology is improving.
Right.
The competition is improving.
Well, the thing that I tell people is that in 2013, and this is according to the US DOE, in 2013, the average price of electricity, wholesale price for wind power purchase agreements was 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And well, it includes, they can do that because they get 1.3 cents per kilowatt hour of incentives from the federal government. But even so, you combine the two of those and it's 4.8 cents per kilowatt hour is sufficient to buy an average price in 2013. The price has gone down since then, but this compares to wind power, which was 6.5 cents on average. And so, to natural gas. So wind power is very successful in competing against natural gas. And solar power,
that's going to get better.
It's going to get better for wind. And solar has been very successful in competing against natural gas peaking plants, which typically come on
at the
same time. So, you know, the solar power plants can just, you know, beat. And there have been several cases in 2013 and since where power purchase agreements from solar were cheaper than any competing price from natural gas.
I mean, just on the, how would I say it? They're competing against each other in a bid process.
Right.
There's no external pressures.
Yep.
They're coming through
Yeah,
on their own merits.
that's right. And now they're starting to push on baseload natural gas as well. Okay, moving right along. Barnstable Patriot tells us, buoyed by tens of thousands of petitioners seeking to breathe new life into the Cape Wind project, demonstrators took to Boston Common on February 28th to ask utility National Grid to rekindle its financial relationship with the project. Then, after that, subsequently, about 96,000 more people signed online support petitions for Cape Wind.
There's a subtext here. Osterville billionaire Bill Koch
Aha, yes.
is one of the primary obstacles to getting the project off.
He has fun. You know, this is funny. This is really funny because just about the time this appeared, I saw a thing appear on Facebook which showed a bird being hit by a wind turbine. It was a large bird. I don't know what kind, but I put a comment up that said, you know, it's too bad that this bird got hit by the blade of a wind turbine. But for a given amount of electricity, a gigawatt hour, you know, the number of birds killed by wind turbines making that electricity is only about a 35th of the number of birds that would be killed by fossil fuel. Fossil fuel. Nuclear is not all that bad compared to.
Birds are flying into the cooling
They fly into the cooling towers. There was an inventory of over 3,000 birds that flew into cooling towers at Crystal River in 2 days.
Wow.
During migration in the 1980s, and I think they lit the cooling towers up to prevent that from happening.
What happens in New York City all the time?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, they fly into skyscrapers. Yes, that's right. And anyway, I posted a thing saying that, and a certain person who happens to be the controlling arm of a certain Vermont nonprofit organization wrote a thing saying that, you know, I mentioned that the Audubon Society in Massachusetts and in Maine had supported Cape Wind. She said, they had been bought by wind interests. Now, just think about that. She's saying that that the Audubon Society is being bought off by a bunch of bird murderers, which is about as believable as the idea that the Koch Industries is not funding some otherwise benign-sounding nonprofit organizations, not including hers, by the way. I don't believe they're doing that.
Picture.
What's that?
It's an artist's conception. It's not a real picture.
Okay.
But that boat there has a sign on the side of it that says Cape Wind Highline Echo Tour. And I can see it happening.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So they build all these windmills, people are going to want to see them.
Yep, they are.
happening now,
They're going to
we'll
want to
see
see them. No question about it. So we move on again.
Move on to the
Okay. Iowa generates 27% of its electricity from wind. It has 4,000 wind-related jobs, and wind companies pay farmers millions of dollars each year to host turbines. Now, this is last Saturday's caucus vote. At the caucus vote, Republican presidential candidates will have to answer for their position on federal wind production tax credit. This is from U.S. News and World Report. We've got another article coming up on this.
Yeah, the Republicans are all in Iowa this week.
Well,
They can stay there. Sorry about that, Republicans.
yeah, well, there are Republicans and then there are different Republicans. And, okay, so we'll go on. Saturday, March 7th, from Clean Technica, comparing 2014 to 2013 in terms of changes in the power produced in the U.S. wind power increased most. In fact, wind power gained more than all traditional power sources put together. Solar was number 2, with 2014 output more than doubling the output of 2013. And interestingly enough, output from natural gas fell despite increased capacity. That's ominous. That's ominous. It means they're building plants, but they're not producing more power. Yeah. And that means the plants they've got, the capacity factor is dropping. So they are building plants, but the power isn't coming from them. And that is, that indicates maybe there's a bubble there.
I would say. There's a couple of graphs, well, I'll put them up real quick.
Yep.
They're just duplicating what you just said, but what's interesting there is, I'll bring it back up, is the map of the United States.
Yes.
Where it's green is where a lot of wind power is.
Right.
The darker the green, the more the wind power.
The more the wind, yeah, absolutely.
This is a percentage of the overall wind power.
Okay.
So
you mean the overall power? This is the wind power as a percentage of overall power.
Overall electricity generation.
Yes,
yeah.
right.
And
so
it's interesting because Texas is probably generating the most wind power.
Yeah.
But it's not the darkest green.
Right. Yeah.
Everything to the west of the Mississippi seems to be right on board, and the
yes.
northeast is catching up.
And the southeast, they just don't have enough wind. But they do. What they do in the southeast is they buy electricity from wind farms in Nebraska, and Oklahoma, Kansas, stuff like that.
You can do that now.
We could buy.
We could do it here.
We could do it here.
The state law doesn't permit it. But
doesn't permit
wholesale. How would I say it? Transfer of electricity from outside of the state. I mean.
Well, no,
the utility has to buy it.
Oh, the utility has to buy it. Yes. Well, yes.
Texas,
Okay. Now I understand what you're saying. Yes,
They
that's
got-
right.
And as we're seeing, something like that's happening in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
That's right. Well, it's in Greenfield. It's a community aggregation. The community as a whole
That's what, yeah.
is buying power from whoever they want to buy power from.
But you can opt out.
You can opt out. Yeah. And I talked to Carol Collins down there about that and said, well, wait a minute, Burlington, Vermont is 100% renewable, and they're saying it's the first 100% renewable city in the United States, which it isn't. Greensburg, Kansas was first, but Greensburg has it's a city with a population of 900. Yeah. But I said, what about Greenfield? And she said, well, Greenfield is forced by state law to buy power that some people might consider not renewable. And I think that was, I think they had to buy a certain amount of power that was produced by landfill gas, which Carol.
I would say that's renewable.
I would call it renewable, but Carol was being a stickler, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that all goes, because she wants to have a microgrid down there. It would be nice if she could do that. It's a long ways off if it comes, though. When it comes, I think it will eventually. Okay, are we moving on from there?
Moving on.
Okay. From Solar Power Portal, the UK has spearheaded a return to growth for utility-scale solar sector in Europe. Excuse me, according to wikisolar.org, the website, which tracks installation of solar projects over 5 megawatts worldwide.
That magic number again.
Yeah, says there's a total of 35.9 gigawatts of utility-scale solar capacity at the end of 2014, up 14.2 gigawatts from 2013. That's a big growth.
Well, a picture shows some panels and a couple of animals there. I think they're goats. They seem totally unaware that there's electricity being generated all
Oh,
around.
yeah.
Yeah, they're sitting there calmly doing their thing.
They munch. That's what they do.
Yeah.
If there's something to munch on, they're happy. As long as they don't munch on the cables. Goats, I would be afraid of, would munch on the cables,
They
but
might. They eat some strange stuff.
at least they try. Okay. From Tree Hugger, we got this. Around the world, there is 51,477 megawatts of wind capacity installed during the year of 2014. A 44...
New wind power.
That's new wind power. A 44% increase over the amount installed in 2013. This brings the total global wind capacity to 369,553 megawatts. A huge number.
There's a bird's eye view of a wind farm up there.
Oh, good.
If you look carefully, you'll see there's a man standing
On the wind turbine?
on top of the wind turbine. He's got the top doors open,
Yes.
and he's standing there.
It gives you a sense of how big those things are. They're
It
like,
shows you how little he is. You know,
That's right.
And I don't think he's a dwarf.
I don't think so. The growth indicates we could double our wind capacity in the next 7 years. That's what it says. Okay, KMA Land says prominent leaders from agriculture's diverse value chain issued an open letter to policymakers and presidential hopefuls attending the first ever Iowa Ag Summit, urging them to consider Iowa's renewable energy record in wind, solar, and biofuels as an example for clean energy policies for the nation.
Well, they're doing a good job.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because there's a big divide here, and we're going to be seeing this more in today's report. There's a big divide among conservatives and Republicans between those who are adamantly opposed to renewable power and those who are very much in favor of it. We've seen that in the past.
I've read about that. I'm aware of it. You know, and if you scratch it deep enough, you find out that people are starting to realize that there's benefits to this.
Yes, there's benefits. Even if you don't believe in climate change, there's benefits. Even if you don't believe in an increase in natural disasters or whatever, there are big benefits. Okay, are we moving on from there?
Move on, yeah.
Sunday, March 8th, more than 5,000 protesters gathered around Parliament in London, calling for the government to take tougher action on climate change. Crowds of environmental activists cheered as a host of speakers, including Vivienne Westwood and Carolyn Lucas, attacked the government and accused it of not taking action. This is from the Belfast Telegraph.
One of the protesters up there is Russell Brand. I think
Okay.
he's a singer, but he's also an activist over there.
Yeah.
So he makes the headlines a lot. He
Well-
also mentions that author Naomi Klein was speaking. there.
We've talked about Naomi Klein
Yeah,
before.
I love that. She's a sharp lady.
She is very sharp. There's no question about that. Okay, same day, Sunday.
I got a whole bunch of takeaways from.
Oh, okay. Go back to that. Yes, of
I'll
course.
run real quick. They're up on the screen.
Okay.
And these are what the protesters were saying or what their signs were saying.
Aha.
Okay.
Okay.
The main parties just want power. They believe everything should be owned by a few people that don't want change.
Yes.
We want MPs, members of parliament, who don't agree with the old system.
Wow.
The press and the TV do not reflect public opinion. The internet does. Well, that's true. You are not alone. People know what's going on. We must keep up the fight against climate change. The clock is ticking. Some of these people are right on the money.
Right. I have a feeling the Queen would be among them if she had the opportunity to do it. And honestly, I know they won't. There is a law in England, you know, we talk about freedom of speech. There's a law that says that if you're a member of the royal family, you are not permitted to express a political, and you can't say anything political, and if you do, it is treason, and it's a capital offense.
Oh my goodness.
So, you know, that Princess Di walking around saying that she wanted to do something about landmines around the world.
Yeah, that was very embarrassing to them.
That was embarrassing to them, but it was treason.
It was treasonous,
And of course, they never, well, honestly, I think that was an accident, but nevertheless, I think it was also a relief to some people in the UK. Anyway, I suppose we should.
I won't mention any more of those things. About 6 or 7 minutes.
Okay.
Look at the article.
It's at the website, geoharvey.wordpress.com. Yes. Okay. Prospective GOP presidential candidates at today's, that is last Saturday's, this was reported at geoharvey.wordpress.com on Sunday, but it was in the news from the previous day. At the Iowa Ag Summit, were pressed to express their opinions on everything from federal policies that have boosted ethanol production to expanded trade with Cuba. Each candidate answered a series of questions from the event host, an Iowa agribusinessman. That's from Radio Iowa. And I bet you have takeaways on that.
I got too many of them, but we'll talk about a few of them. Chris Christie criticized President Obama for failing to execute the renewable fuel standard for 2014 and 2015, whatever that means.
What can
Mike
I say?
Huckabee called the renewable fuel standard just one bit of an overall strategy of making U.S. energy independent and energy secure. So he's one of the right-wingers that's in favor of this stuff.
Yes.
Okay, Jeb Bush told the crowd, if you believe in markets working, the federal incentives for ethanol and wind power production should eventually end. Well, they will.
Eventually, yeah.
The Environmental Agency was a frequent punching bag as the candidates criticized the agency's proposed clean water regulations. Oh, we can't have clean water.
Oh my
Rick
gosh.
Perry said it was the right decision for him to support the state's livestock industry and speak out against the renewable fuel standard 5 years ago. He's changed his mind since. Scott Walker said the review of the RFS should be eliminated in the long term. Well, yeah, but he supports the ethanol production standard in the near term to ensure the corn-based fuel gets access to the market. Now, where's he from? Wisconsin?
Oh my
It's a
gosh.
corn state.
You know, here I am, and my position on this is we shouldn't be using corn ethanol.
No,
I don't mind.
Boondoggle.
I don't mind the ethanol,
Boondoggle's been a total
but the
failure.
idea of growing corn for ethanol just really bothers me.
Well, you can't eat it. If you're growing it for ethanol,
You can't eat it.
or the cows can't eat it.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
It's a strain of corn that's indigestible, but also corn is extremely hard on the soil.
Yeah,
It takes a lot of fuel to grow it.
Yes,
It
it
takes a
does.
lot of chemicals to grow it. And the result of that is you use a gallon of gasoline to produce a gallon of ethanol. Why are you doing that? You know,
And those numbers are pretty accurate.
actually, I think it's more than a gallon. I think it's you have a net loss, or it's net loss of power. And another thing too, I was very conscious. My last car was a Prius. I don't have a car now. And my Prius, in my Prius, I was very conscious of my mileage all the time.
Yeah, well, it tells it to you all the time, doesn't it?
Right,
Come on,
and
man.
when I could no longer get straight gasoline, and it was 10% ethanol,
Yeah.
it cut my mileage by 10%.
I've heard that before.
And this is like,
So who's gaining?
where's the
Other
win
than
there?
People who grow the corn.
Exactly, and the people who grow the corn could be growing the corn for other purposes.
Yeah, they could.
So I just, you know.
It's not individual farmers we're talking about. We're talking about giant agribusiness.
Yes, we are. Yeah, although there are individual farmers involved, it's a lot of it is agribiz. Okay, should we move on from that one?
Yeah, move
Yes.
on already.
Okay. Monday, March 9th. If the true costs of emissions increased rates of premature death, illness, and increased loads in the healthcare system, lowered crop yields, missed work days, etc., are factored in. A gallon of gasoline would cost you roughly $3.80 more at the pump than it currently does, according to Duke University research.
Well, we've talked about that before. It's externalization of the cost.
Right.
It's, what is it? Privatizing the profits and socializing the risks.
That's right. And the losses.
Fair.
No, it isn't fair. It is not fair. We will get to fairness a little bit more. That was from Clean Technica. Our next item, also on Monday, Solar Impulse 2 took off from Abu Dhabi.
And there it is. There's Abu Dhabi. It's all green.
Okay.
Actually, right about now, that is all green.
Yeah.
Because they've had the spring rains.
Yeah. In the UAE, en route to the Omani capital of Muscat, in the start of a 5-month journey of 22,000 miles organized to focus the world's attention on sustainable energy. The flight will be the first round the world in a solar-powered plane. We will get back to this.
Yeah, we got a nice little slideshow on it.
We have a little slideshow at the end of the show with a slideshow. Okay. And we'll talk about that some more. And that was from Reuters Africa. From Business Green, clean energy and transport projects across the U.S. created 47,000 new jobs last year. According to a new study from Business Group, Environmental Entrepreneurs Analysis confirms that the U.S. has created more than 233,000 clean energy and clean transportation jobs nationwide over the past 3 years.
And many of these jobs are pretty good jobs.
Many of them are, but that, interestingly enough, that doesn't even include the jobs that are also involved in clean technologies that include things like insulating and window technology.
Yeah.
It does not include those.
It's all part of the mix.
It's all part of the mix. That's
They're
right.
good paying jobs too.
They are indeed. And they're jobs that people can, real people I'm talking about, guys that you'd
Well,
meet
you
on the
don't need a
street.
PhD to do
You don't need a PhD to do these things.
But you can make the same kind of money that PhDs make.
Very often that's true, yes.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter is currently studying for a PhD in philosophy at the University of Glasgow. And I've been asking her since she was 9 whether she was going to start a philosophy shop. I've been advocating in
That might be a
favor
good idea.
in favor of prepackaged philosophies stored on the shelf, so you can say, I want to be an existentialist, and you just grab a pack of books and there it is. Or if you want to pay a lot of money, you could get a custom-made philosophy.
Yeah.
There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's an idea you ought to pursue.
I'm not a philosopher. Anyway.
Yes, you are.
I'm not. Valley News tells us the owner of the shuttered Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant wants an exemption to use money from the plant's decommissioning fund to pay for guarding spent nuclear fuel. Now, you know, that's really interesting considering that the federal government pays them to store spent nuclear fuel.
Yeah, they're playing some games.
They are indeed. The state says that this is a violation of federal regulations and would delay decommissioning, and sent a letter to the NRC calling for a hearing.
I had a hard time getting this one because Valley News, I've used my one free article there already.
Oh, no.
They wanted money.
Oh, they want
I
money.
managed to find the same article, or one very close to it on
Yep.
Vermont Digger.
Yes.
Which is an interesting site. I ought to read it.
Vermont Digger is a pretty good site, yeah.
They had a picture of Arnie Duncan.
Vermont Digger is
But that's not his name. Arnie Gunderson.
Arnie Gunderson, yes.
He's up there now.
Yeah. Vermont Digger, just for those who want to know, is VT Digger, D-I-G-G-E-R, VTDIGGER.org.
Yep.
So,
It's a
and
good site.
it's a good site. You can go there and you can get a lot of information
It's not all
about
about energy. It's about Vermont.
It's about Vermont. That's exactly right. So we will promote that little piece of.
Yeah, there's a little bit about what's going on here. The Vermont, the company, Energy, plans to use the fund for any legal expenses associated with fighting the state.
Oh my
So
gosh!
if the state won't let them do what they want to do, they're going to sue.
Right.
They're going to pay for the suit
Out of the
people's
decommissioning
money.
fund. I'm sorry.
That's what
You know,
we're
I got to tell you, there comes a point where things are just reprehensible. And you know, if they were a wind business, a solar business, or whatever. I would say that kind of position is reprehensible. It's,
It is
you know,
reprehensible,
it's just
no matter who's doing it.
no matter who's doing it.
Here's the takeaway here. At issue is how certain withdrawals from the so-called decommissioning trust fund affect the timeline for decommissioning. If they take money out of the fund, it takes longer to decommission.
Mm-hmm.
Only when the fund reaches the estimated $1.2 billion cost of decommissioning will the company seek to begin tearing down the plant.
Right.
And that's getting extended.
Well, yeah, and the cost is going up. So this year it's 1.2 billion. Next year it might be 1.3 billion. It's conceivable that it would never reach the amount.
It may never ever happen.
Yeah, it might never happen.
500 years from now, it's still sitting on the banks of the Connecticut.
Right, right.
Heads I win, tails you lose.
Right. Okay. Our next item, which comes from the Barry Montpelier Times Argus, is an opinion piece called "Rethinking the Addison Pipeline." And it says $154 million is a lot to spend on Vermont Gas System's Addison County pipeline. That same amount of money could be much better spent weatherizing homes and businesses, installing more efficient heating systems, and installing solar photovoltaic systems.
So somebody looked at the numbers, didn't they?
Well, there's another thing to bear in mind here, and that is, and this is not coming up. Oh, it is coming up, but it's going to appear under a guise that doesn't say this. The H-140 had an amendment put into it, and I would really like to know who did this. It was an amendment that was put in to eliminate the efficiency.
Yeah, eliminate efficiency Vermont.
That's right.
Yeah.
They want to cut the money going to Efficiency Vermont, and instead clean up Lake Champlain with the money. And the problem that I've got so many problems that it's hard for me to imagine where to start.
Well, Efficiency Vermont, as far as I know, has been doing a pretty good job.
Efficiency Vermont has been called Vermont's most successful utility because of the
virtual utility.
It's a virtual utility, and I think that it would be a terrible shame because it's saving everybody money, and it's helping the environment. Lake Champlain, we don't even own Lake Champlain. We only have the east shore of it. And so is New York going to join in on this thing? And who polluted Lake Champlain? It's the Koch brothers. They aren't in either state. Well, maybe it's not the Koch brothers alone. It's,
Now, part of this pipeline has been abandoned because it's no longer
that's right.
supported by international paper.
Yes, that's right.
But it's not dead.
Well, the pipeline, and as a matter of fact, one of the backers of the pipeline is Middlebury College, which is really forward-looking when it comes to renewable power. And their reason for backing the pipeline is because they want to move methane that is created for them through the pipeline to Middlebury College instead of bringing it by truck. And, there's a certain...
So this is pretty complicated.
It's a complicated issue, yeah.
Another interesting thing about this, the way this is structured economically,
Yes.
the users of the pipeline pay for it.
Right.
And the cost of hooking up to the pipeline for one of these potential users is enormous. Layered on top of a $6,000 gas connection fee, then you got to buy a new gas boiler or furnace. The price tag for a new residential gas customer jumps to 17 grand. In exchange, based on the current differences between oil and natural gas prices, those customers would see about a 30% reduction in their heating bill.
So what's going to happen?
How long is it going to take you to save that 17 grand you've got to come up with up front?
Let's think of an alternative here. Air-to-air heat source, heat pump.
That's mentioned in the article.
Yeah. And that would be cheaper.
Yes.
You could do the same thing cheaper
Much cheaper.
and not have the natural gas.
Yeah.
And if you throw solar PVs on your roof or buy into a solar farm, you can have that whole thing paid for by the sun. Why would you want to do that?
Well, I think if you scratch into this, there's some economic issues there. There's some people that are investors that are looking to make some money on it.
Yeah.
It's not helping the people of Vermont.
No, I don't think it is. Anyway, we're up to Wednesday, which is the last day of our coverage. And what we have Wednesday.
One more on Tuesday, though.
Oh, yes, we do. You're right. Absolutely. This is from Energy Collective at RE Invest 2015 Summit in India last month. Banks, financial institutions, and private sectors offered commitments to shift the country's big commitments.
We talked about this. Yeah.
Huge, to shift the country's power supply to clean and renewable energies. What didn't come along with this was any explicit roadmap for how the grid would support such changes.
Reading into the article, the infrastructure isn't there.
The infrastructure isn't there. However, one thing that has been brought up for renewable energy in India is the idea that the country would be divided into microgrids that are not dependent on the grid. And these microgrids are huge. They're like 20 miles across. Mm-hmm. And so what they would do is put in a designed set of energy supplies and backup supplies and so forth into the microgrid. And then the microgrid is 10 miles radius, 20 miles across, which means that you don't need big transmission lines for these things.
Exactly.
Saves a lot of money.
Well, they're basically reinventing the wheel.
I think they are.
Coming
yeah.
from the 18th century to the
right.
21st century.
Well,
in a generation.
Yep. 300 million people
have never had electricity. 300
million people still don't have electricity.
I mean, in the cities of India, they're okay. But out there in the country,
well,
there's no power.
The cities in India are not okay. They have power outages like mad.
They do, yeah, that's
and
true.
So they're okay in the sense that they've got some electricity, but it's unreliable. And I think their investment in, I think basically what we should say is that the investment in transmission that has to be made to support distributed power is not the conventional investment in transmission.
Well, it's a new concept.
It's a new concept.
And if the grid that developed in the 20th century was being developed now, it would be developed a lot differently.
It would be very different, yes. Very different, I agree.
There's an interesting ending to this story, and this is part of the problem. Distribution companies in India might pay 1 cent per kilowatt hour for power from a hydro resource that was built by the state decades ago, mm-hmm. because the cost of the infrastructure is fully paid off. It's mm-hmm. there. Mm-hmm. Solar's coming in at 8 cents about per kilowatt hour. New coal might be 6 cents. This is in India today. So they got to deal with some economic problems that haven't been thought of when this came.
Right.
I mean, they'll resolve it. And you've already mentioned some of the ways they're going to do it. With the microgrids.
Well, new coal, when you're putting in coal, you're probably putting in big baseload power plants, centralized power plants, which means you've got to put in, with the coal, big investment.
Well, they may have an opportunity to relook at that whole damn thing.
It'd be interesting to look at the cost of transmission facilities and compare it with the cost of batteries. I'm
sure people are doing it.
I'm sure they are, but I'd just love to see that. Somebody publish that. Okay. Do I have permission to move on now?
Yes, you do.
Thank you so much. Hindustan Times is where we're going with this. Solar Impulse 2 landed in India late on Tuesday, completing the first major sea leg of its epic bid to become the first solar-powered plane to fly around the world. The aircraft touched down in Gujarat at 11:25 p.m. to finish its second leg in a little less than 16 hours after taking off from the Omani capital, Muscat. And they have a long ways to go, but they're going to fly from India to Myanmar to China, and then from China they're going to fly to Hawaii.
Yeah,
that's a long trip.
We got a little
slideshow coming.
A little slideshow coming on that, and there is a map.
There's a map. Good enough.
It's looking good.
Okay, VT Digger. We just mentioned them a minute ago, a couple of minutes ago. Said this: Vermont House passed H40, a bill designed to reduce residents' carbon footprints, despite complaints from Republicans who fear the new, I'm just having trouble speaking, renewable energy targets will come at an unforeseen cost. Unforeseen cost. I wonder what the unforeseen costs would be of not working toward that target. But nevertheless, the RESET program, This is the name of the new program that's
Yeah,
replacing speed is reset. I
It's an
hate
acronym.
hate that name. Hate it.
It's an acronym.
Yeah.
I don't know what it stands for.
Increases-
Renewable energy something or other.
Right. Increases energies from power from renewables from 50% of sales by 2017. It's only a couple of years from now, to 75% by 2032.
It sounds like an unreachable target.
Except
But
we're
some
already
of these
there.
utilities are there already.
I know. This is like
Here's a picture of a couple of
of our legislative
our legislators.
people.
Yeah, that's the guy on the left there who's gesturing there. He's Don Turner from Milton,
Okay.
and he's testifying before the House Natural Resources and Energy Committee.
Yes.
And he's the guy that proposed that amendment I think you were talking about.
Okay. Now
What it says here is he doesn't identify it as that amendment, but he has proposed an amendment. So this could be the guy.
it could be.
This could be the
Okay.
guy.
The amendment was to take the money from Efficiency Vermont and sink it in Lake
Yeah,
Champlain.
yeah.
Does this make sense? Anyway, the Senate can actually cut that out, and I hope it does.
Well, you know, one of the things that this,
I'm gonna
this Renewable Energy Vermont has been doing
Yeah.
is they have subsidized the prices of compact fluorescents that you buy in the market.
Yeah.
Instead of paying $5 for a light bulb, you're getting one for $1.
Right.
Right here in Brown and Roberts.
Right.
98 cents.
Right.
And people are putting them in right and left, whereas they would think twice to pay $5 for a light bulb.
Yes.
Even though the economics are there with that $5.
Yes.
But it's hard to understand the concept of buying a $5 light bulb.
It is. You know.
You can't-
Well,
You can't pay around 98 cents for something that's going to.
honestly, I was spending $12 and $13 for a light bulb in
You're
1982.
an early adapter. You
Yeah.
knew what was going
I
on.
thought you were going to say, yeah, but you're crazy.
You weren't crazy at all.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Okay, and now I've got a little thing here that is our last piece coming up, and I've got a little discussion to add to it.
Oh, okay.
In 2015, electric generating companies are expected to add more than 20 gigawatts of capacity to the grid.
Okay.
The additions are dominated by wind at 9.8 gigawatts, natural.
Almost half, huh?
That's almost very nearly half. Natural gas at 6.3 gigawatts, solar at 2.2 gigawatts, and they combine to make up 91% of the total. Nearly 16 gigawatts is expected to retire, including 12.9 gigawatts of coal.
Most of them are old. Most of them are small.
Right. Now, there's more to
There's
this.
a lot of them.
Yeah, there's more to this story. Natural gas is listed in what I just read as contributing 6.3 gigawatts. However, when 2 gigawatts is being retired, so the actual increase is only 4.3 gigawatts.
Oh.
Okay. Wind energy is going up by 9,811 megawatts, solar by 2,235 megawatts, and other renewables by 471 megawatts, so that the total is 12,517 megawatts. Gas is going up by 4,300 megawatts, nuclear by 1,122. I believe there's a nuclear plant that they're expecting to see brought online.
One of them's coming online in December, supposedly.
Yeah.
That's in
If
I see it.
yeah, I'll believe that when I see it.
And the other one is we've talked about is the Voda plant.
Right.
Which may not ever be complete.
Yeah.
It's been
Right.
extended.
Extended, yeah. Well, oil has lost 800 megawatts and coal 12,922 megawatts. So basically what we're saying here is that renewables are increasing by 12,517 megawatts and fossil fuels are decreasing by 9,404.
Well, up on the screen, there's two maps. And the one on the left is the new plants that are being developed. And the one on the right is the old plants.
That are being,
Most of them
ditched.
are large, most of them are in the east.
yep,
The new plants are smaller and they're more widely dispersed.
yep,
And if you look at the colors which identify what they're using to generate the power, there's a lot of green there to indicate wind.
yep. And that that mass that you see there in Iowa, I'm sorry, in Ohio, the air from those comes here.
Oh yeah.
So this will
Oh yeah.
improve
You go along
Vermont's.
the Ohio River, you just see smokestacks up and down the river.
That's
and
right.
That's all coming here.
That's all coming
That's
here.
absolutely
That's right.
correct.
And the people who are in that area are losing jobs in coal mines and in coal
Yes, they are.
producing facilities, but they're getting jobs in wind farms and in solar farms and in construction of the same and in various clean technologies. So the sense
Is
that
it a
I'm
push?
getting,
Is it a push?
I don't know.
You know, coal mining jobs are well-paying jobs.
They pay well and they kill you.
Yeah, well,
you know.
that's part of the deal.
That's part of the deal. You die young.
You die
Yeah.
at 50, we don't have to pay your Social Security anymore.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you can sign on to it, it's kind of like, paying money for tobacco.
Yeah.
What can I say? Okay,
Well,
we
at the
we
end
have
here-
we have a slideshow for
Yeah, we
everybody.
got 10 minutes for a slideshow. We could do it slowly.
Well, let's do it slowly. There you go.
Okay, let's pull it up here.
Okay. That is the Solar Impulse 2. Is it taking off or landing?
Taking off from Muscat
From Muscat.
in Oman.
Okay. Now this aircraft, we should talk about this a little bit as we go. The wingspan of this aircraft is several yards more than the wingspan of the largest of the 747s.
Yeah, it's just a little
This
bit
is-
bigger than a 747.
Yeah, but it's the weight of the aircraft is more like what you'd expect an SUV to weigh. This is a very light aircraft.
Oh yeah, it's practically made out of balsa wood.
Yeah. Yeah.
An interesting picture here, because if you see in the lower right corner, there's a guy riding a bicycle.
That's right.
Now he's not out for exercise.
Okay.
He accompanied that plane to hold the wing so that it wouldn't drag on the ground when it's taken off. There's one on each end.
Okay.
One on each end. That's what that guy's doing on the bicycle.
You know, I was wondering about that because every picture I've seen of this plane taking off or landing included people on bicycles.
Yeah.
There you go.
Move along to the
Yeah.
next one. Now here it is landing in Oman.
And you see the guy on the
There's
bicycle.
the guy on the bicycle again.
There you
There
go.
it is. There
Okay.
it is.
So this is and if you look at that, it looks like it could possibly have room inside for half a dozen people. It doesn't.
Well, you can look at the fuselage there, and it's basically empty space.
Yep.
It's just long enough to hold the tail.
Right.
You can see the solar panels on top of the wing. The cockpit is the plane. This thing's more like what do you call a tadpole?
Right.
More like a tadpole than anything else. It's
Okay.
This big head, a long thin tail with nothing in it.
Yep. And it's got 4 engines
Yep.
that are spaced.
Electric engine.
Yeah, they're electric motors, and those have got to be marvels too. You know, they build these neodymium turbines and motors
sure,
and
they're
thing like
very
that, and it's
effective
very
motors,
powerful.
yeah.
I was amazed when I got my Prius. The electric motor in the Prius was 35 horsepower, and it was about the size of a grapefruit can.
No kidding.
I mean, these things are tiny,
Wow.
and it's a DC motor. And I'm accustomed to a DC 35 horsepower motor being about the size of, I don't know, 4 automotive V8 engines.
Uh-huh.
These things are huge, but nowadays they, with the stuff that they can make, they've really cut them back. Okay, so what's the next thing on the
Move
agenda?
to the next one here. This is some of the team that came with it.
Yep.
These guys precede and follow the plane.
Right,
And
right.
another 2 planes. There's a whole bunch of them.
Right. In other
And
words,
they're the ground crew. They know what they're doing.
yeah, you hope.
Well, let's hope they do.
They'd better.
Let's hope they
This
do.
is not a trivial undertaking.
No, this is quite a project. Really.
Yep.
This is quite a project.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move along to the next one here. Again, these guys are pushing it. It doesn't have power to its own wheels,
Of course.
of course.
Yeah.
It would add weight.
Yeah. They've got to make this as light as they possibly can.
No,
And
like I said, it's practically a balsa wood plane.
yeah,
You
and
can see
you know,
the structure there of the plane. It's just a skeleton.
that from a light that looks like it might be inside the plane,
It does
showing
look
through
like
a
it, doesn't
skin.
it? Yep, it does look like that. I think it is.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's all kind of amazing.
Let's get the next one up here.
Now there is a picture of the cockpit, and again, it looks like you could have a couple of people in there side by side, but I don't think you
There's
can.
two guys.
Two guys?
Yeah, two pilots. We'll see one of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's two guys. So they're getting ready. And here's one of the pilots. They're both Swiss, by the way.
Okay.
So he's happier than hell. He's so, I'm down.
I'll tell you, when they get down on Hawaii, I think that's when they're going to be real. Oh man, they're going to be able to get
5,000 miles.
Yes, and they're going to be able to go about 1,000 miles a day. It's going to take them 5 days and 5 nights of constant flying an airplane to get to Hawaii.
That's 25 days. You would have figured they'd have tried to make it 30 around the world in 30 days.
And well, they're going to be doing it in a period of months and months and months.
No, it's
Oh,
25 flying days.
yes.
Okay, and yeah, it's 25 months.
But getting across the ocean, one of the things that I read is that they're never going to be allowed to sleep more than 20 minutes at a time.
That's interesting. I didn't catch that one. Why
Yeah.
doesn't this move?
Well, for one thing, you've got the wrong. You don't have it on the screen.
Oh, it's not moving
Oh,
on
it's not.
one
Oh, there it is. I can
There-
see
there
it.
we go.
Okay.
It just went to sleep.
Computers are so
So here,
annoying.
Here they're about to land over India. Quite a bit different from Muscat
Yes.
or Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
Interesting picture.
Yes.
Very interesting picture. You can see it from the air.
It'll be interesting to see what these people have to say about flying over the open Pacific.
I'm sure we'll hear.
I think they're going to see things. Maybe not. They're going to be extremely high. They're going to be about
Here is the
30,000.
final thing. We can talk about this one because there's the map.
Okay.
And there's the plane. It's a good view of the plane. Two pilots attempting their first flight around the world in a solar-powered plane began the maiden leg of their voyage from the UAE on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
17,000 solar cells built into its wings.
Yep.
236-foot wingspan, about as wide as that of an Airbus A330 Super Jumbo, which is bigger than a 737.
Yeah.
23 tons, which is a little bit more than tons, metric tons.
23 metric tons. Okay.
Weight of the aircraft around the same, about the same as that of a car, a family car. I said 23 tons, 2.3 tons.
2.3 tons. Okay. Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, 25 days, 12 stop flight over 5 months, covering a total distance of 35,000 kilometers. I didn't look up that one. That's probably about 25,000 miles, 20,000.
Well, yeah.
30,000 miles.
Yep.
This is the circumference of the Earth.
Yes, it is. And it's the circumference fairly close to the equator.
It will travel at 50 to 100 kilometers per hour. That's about 30 to 60 miles per hour. With the slower speeds at night to prevent the batteries from draining too quickly.
Yes.
And the sun's not hitting them during the day, so they can go faster.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of it taking off from Al Bateen Airport in Abu Dhabi on Monday. So it's you know, in a way it's kind of silly because this plane is never going to be able to do anything useful.
Well, neither did the Wright brothers
Neither
plane.
did the Wright brothers, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is history.
It is indeed.
This is history.
I hope they don't run into
Yeah, some
difficulties of some kind.
difficulty here.
Well, you know, I remember reading the book We. You ever read that?
We?
We.
No, I don't think I know
W-E.
it.
It was Lindbergh's book,
Oh.
and I remember reading that book and feeling all worried about whether he was going to make it.
Yeah, well, I bet you weren't the only one worried.
But you know, that's reading a book about something he'd done.
Yeah.
We have to say goodbye.
Well, I guess we do.
So we'll say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Have a nice week, everybody, and we will.
Wrong hand again.
Wrong hand. See you later. Okay.
Good guys. That's it.
We spin and we toil, we work all day, sowing and reaping, we store goods away, so we can be dressed well on the day that we die. We dig and drill and waste what we find, break up the earth, leaving